Okay, let's just imagine for a second. What if you could literally redesign an entire industry, the economic engine of a whole country, from the ground up? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. We're looking at a super ambitious blueprint for Bangladesh's garment sector. And I mean, this isn't just about some minor tweaks here and there. We're talking about a complete radical transformation. And at the absolute heart of this whole thing is a really simple but powerful idea. The garment workers, the ones who bring in all that foreign currency, they are the lifeblood of the economy. This isn't just a nice sentiment. It's the bedrock, the foundation for every single thing we're about to talk about. So you have this big idea, but how do you actually put it into practice? Well, that's where this comes in. This seal, it represents the Garment Workers' Rights and Welfare Initiative. It's basically the formal group, the official effort trying to turn that core principle into a reality. Their whole goal is to make sure things we take for granted, like international labor standards, fair hours, safe conditions, and a real living wage, aren't just on paper, but are actually happening on the ground. It's like building a house, right? You can't put up the walls and the roof before you've got a solid foundation. So where does this massive plan even begin? Well, it starts right at the base, with the fundamental well-being of the workers themselves. And look, we're not talking about some vague, fuzzy hopes here. No, this proposal is built on 5 very specific, very concrete demands. These are the things that they say define what a decent, secure life should actually look like for millions of people. And what's really key here is how specific they get. It's not just, hey, we want housing. It's quality, healthy accommodations. It's not just more food. It's a specific target, 2,500 calories a day. Then you've got primary healthcare right there at the workplace, mandatory group insurance to act as a safety net, and a complete, from the ground up, overhaul of the salary structure. So let's talk numbers. The plan sets a brand new, clear baseline for pay. For a helper-level worker, the proposed monthly gross salary is 15,000 Bangladeshi taka. Now, to give you some perspective, that's about $127. And then, for the more experienced operators, that number goes up to 20,000 taka a month, which is around $170. The important thing to know is that these numbers aren't just random. They're not pulled out of thin air. They've been calculated based on actual market prices for things, all to provide a genuine, livable wage. Okay, so we've got this list of demands, a 5-point plan. Sounds good, right? But here's the billion-dollar question. How do you actually turn a list into reality for millions of people? I mean, it's one thing to have great ideas, but it's something else entirely to build a working nationwide system. And this is where the plan gets really, really interesting.
The answer is a blueprint, a super detailed 3-phase blueprint. Think of it like a strategic roadmap designed to take these demands from just words on a page and turn them into actual real-world change. So let's break it down.
So the timeline they've laid out is pretty ambitious, but it's also really methodical. Phase 1 is all about prep work, just laying the groundwork, and that happens in the first 1 to 3 months. Then phase 2 is when things really kick into gear. That's implementation, and it runs from month 4 to month 12. And finally, phase 3, anything after that first year, is all about making sure this whole thing is sustainable for the long haul. So, diving into phase 1, the preparation phase, it's really all about getting everyone on the same page. They form a joint committee to bring all the key players to the table. We're talking government, factory owners, and worker representatives. At the same time, you've got financial experts crunching the numbers to figure out a cost model that can actually last. And for the housing piece, they're looking at a public-private partnership model. The whole idea here is to build a solid consensus before they start making any huge changes. All right, then we get to phase 2. This is where things start to get real for the workers. The new salary structure, it gets enforced, giving people more financial security right away. That mandatory insurance policy, it gets rolled out, providing a super important safety net. Healthcare units start popping up right inside the factories. And they even kick off the first pilot projects for housing, just to demonstrate that this model can actually work. Now, phase 3, this is the part that's designed to make the whole thing last. It's not just about starting something new, it's about keeping it going. So that joint committee sticks around to monitor everything. They collect data to actually prove that, hey, better conditions lead to better productivity. But here's the absolute game changer. This is when the factory owners start negotiating with the big international brands to adjust prices. The whole point is to make sure the cost of all this progress is shared fairly. That is the key to making the system stick. Okay, so it's really important to zoom out for a second here.
Because this incredibly detailed plan for the garment industry, it's actually just the first piece of a much, much bigger puzzle. Think of it as the starting point for a huge national vision, one that's aimed at the complete rejuvenation of the entire country.
This bigger philosophy, this grand vision, it's all laid out in a book called The Architects of Tomorrow. And it frames this whole movement not as just, a list of complaints about how things are now, but as a thoughtfully crafted manifesto and a strategic roadmap for national transformation. And the scale of that ambition is, well, it's massive. We're talking about tackling deep-rooted systemic problems like poverty and inequality. The goal is to elevate Bangladesh to the same global standing as countries like Japan or Singapore. It's about uniting 180 million people behind a single purpose to fulfill a noble mission of building a prosperous and just nation. Which, of course, brings us right back down to earth with a very practical question. A vision this big, even just the 5-point plan for the garment workers, it's not free. It comes with a price tag. So how on earth is it all going to be funded? Yeah, this is the question that's probably been on your mind this whole time. Who actually pays for all of this? For the better wages, the better housing, the healthcare? Does the entire cost just get dumped on the factory owners? Well, the answer really flips the script. It requires a completely new way of thinking about cost. See, for decades, the burden of keeping prices low fell squarely on the shoulders of the factories in Bangladesh. This new proposal says no more. It argues that the cost of ethical production has to be shared across the entire global supply chain. And that means sitting down and negotiating with the big international buyers, making sure they pay a price that actually reflects the true cost of dignified labor. So when you boil it all down, this entire plan is built on one powerful idea, that by investing in the well-being of the workers, the lifeblood of the economy, you're not just improving a few lives, you're literally weaving a stronger, more prosperous future for an entire nation. And the question it leaves us with is, can a nation's future really be woven from a better thread?